Listen, this one right here, it's going to hurt a little, but it's the truth. Sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that someone can love you and still not show up for you. You sitting there checking your phone, wondering why they haven't called, why they haven't texted, why they disappeared. And in your heart, you keep saying, but I know they love me. Let me tell you something. Love by itself is not enough. See, people think love is supposed to make everything happen, but it don't. Love doesn't make a man pick up the phone. Love doesn't make a woman fight for you. Love doesn't create courage where there is fear. Sometimes they love you, but they're not ready. Sometimes they love you, but they're broken. And sometimes they love you, but they don't love you enough to choose you. That's the part nobody wants to hear. Because if someone truly wants to be in your life, you won't be confused. You won't be guessing. You won't be questioning your worth every night. When a person is sure about you, they show up. Period. Now listen carefully. Silence is also an answer. When they don't contact you, they are making a decision, not by words, but by actions. And actions always speak louder than feelings. You got to stop romanticizing potential. Stop holding on to what could be and start paying attention to what is. Because what is right now is that they are not choosing you. And you deserve to be chosen, not sometimes, not when it's convenient, not when it's convenient, not when they are lonely. You deserve consistency. So don't sit there and build a fantasy around someone's feelings while ignoring their behavior. Let them go, because the right person, they won't leave you wondering. They won't leave you waiting. They won't love you in silence. They'll show it every single day. One of the most painful truths you ever have to accept in relationships is this: love by itself is not enough to make something work. People grow up believing that if two people love each other, everything else will fall into place. That belief is comforting, it's romantic, and it's everywhere in movies, in songs, and even in advice we hear growing up. But real life doesn't operate that way. You can deeply love someone and still fail them. You can care about someone and still not show up when it matters most. And that's where confusion begins, because when someone says they love you, your natural expectation is that their actions will match those words. When they don't, you start questioning everything: yourself, them, and the relationship. Love is a feeling, but relationships require more than feelings. They require effort, consistency, emotional maturity, communication, and most importantly, choice. Every single day, being with someone is a decision. It's choosing to call, choosing to text, choosing to check in, choosing to be present. When someone isn't doing those things, it doesn't automatically mean they don't feel something for you, but it does mean they are not choosing you. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because it forces you to separate two things you always thought went together: love and behavior. You might think, if they love me, why don't they reach out? The answer is uncomfortable, because love doesn't automatically create action. Some people love you, but lack the courage to pursue you. Some love you, but are too distracted, too immature, or too emotionally unavailable to maintain a real connection. And some love you in a way that is simply not strong enough to overcome their own habits, fears, or priorities. So you end up in this emotional trap, holding onto the idea that their love should be enough while their actions keep proving otherwise. This is where many people lose themselves. This is where many people lose themselves. They start making excuses for the other person. Maybe they busy, maybe they going through something, maybe they come back. And while some of those things can be true, they don't change the reality you're living in. You're not being shown the love you deserve. Because real love, healthy, mature love, doesn't leave you guessing. It doesn't leave you feeling unsure or insecure. It doesn't disappear for days or weeks without explanation. Real love shows up. It makes an effort. It communicates. It prioritizes. When someone truly values you, you won't have to convince yourself of it. You won't need to decode their silence or justify their absence. Their actions will give you clarity. Understanding that love is not enough. It's not about becoming cold or cynical. It's about becoming aware. It's about recognizing that you deserve more than just someone's feelings. You deserve their effort, their time, their consistency, and their presence. Because at the end of the day, what matters is not just how someone feels about you in their heart, but how they show up for you in your life. And if those two things don't align, then no matter how much love exists, it will never be enough to build something real. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is believing what someone says over what they consistently do. Words are powerful, no doubt. When someone tells you, I love you, I miss you, or I care about you, it touches something deep inside. It creates hope. It makes you feel seen and valued. But here's the truth. Words without action are just empty promises. Feelings can be real, but actions reveal commitment. A person can feel something for you in a moment. Maybe they miss you late at night. Maybe they think about you when they're alone. But real connection is not built on temporary emotions. It's built on consistent behavior. Anyone can say the right thing when it's convenient, but not everyone will follow through when it requires effort, time, and sacrifice. That's where actions separate truth from illusion. When someone truly cares about you, you won't have to chase them for attention. You won't have to wonder why they haven't called or why they take days to respond. Their actions will naturally reflect their interest. They will make time, even when they're busy. They will communicate, even when it's not easy. They will show up, even when life gets complicated. Because effort is a choice, and people always make time for what truly matters to them. This is why paying attention to behavior is so important. If someone says they care about you but never checks on you, what does that really mean? If they say they miss you but never try to see you, what are they actually showing you? If they claim you're important but constantly put you last, where do you really stand in their life? It's easy to get caught up in what someone feels. You might think, I know they love me, they're just not good at showing it. But that mindset can keep you stuck in a cycle of disappointment. Because instead of accepting what is happening, you start focusing on what you hope is happening inside them. And hope can be dangerous when it ignores reality. Actions don't lie. They are the clearest form of communication. They don't need interpretation, guessing, or overthinking. If someone is interested, you will see it. If someone values you, you will feel it through their effort. And if someone is inconsistent, distant, or absent, their actions are already giving you your answer. That doesn't mean they are bad people. It simply means they are not showing up for you in the way you need. And that's what matters. You deserve someone whose words and actions align, someone who doesn't just say they care, but proves it through consistency. Someone who doesn't just express feelings in moments of emotion, but backs them up with real effort over time. Because anyone can feel something. That's easy. But not everyone will act on those feelings in a way that builds trust, security, and a real relationship. So instead of holding on to what someone says, start paying attention to what they do. Watch how often they reach out. Notice how they treat you when it's inconvenient. See if their presence in your life is steady or unpredictable. Because in the end, actions will always tell you the truth that words sometimes try to hide. And once you start believing actions over feelings, you stop settling for confusion and start choosing clarity. One of the most misunderstood things in relationships is silence. People often treat silence like it's nothing, like it's just time passing, like it doesn't mean anything. But the truth is, silence always carries a message. When someone stops calling, stops texting, or disappears without explanation, that silence is not neutral. It's a decision. And it's a decision you need to pay attention to, because no one is ever too busy to reach out to someone they truly want in their life. Think about that for a second. In a world where people are constantly on their phones, scrolling, texting, checking notifications, it only takes a few seconds to send a message. So when someone goes hours, days, or even weeks without contacting you, it's not because they didn't have time. It's because they didn't make the time. That's the difference. Silence is not about inability. It's about priority. This is where a lot of people get stuck. Instead of accepting the silence for what it is, they start creating explanations to make it hurt less. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they need space. Maybe something happened. And while sometimes those things can be true, they don't erase the fact that you're being left in the dark. And someone who truly values you doesn't leave you there. When a person cares about your feelings, they communicate, even if it's just to say, hey, I need some time, or I'm dealing with something right now. That kind of honesty shows respect. But disappearing without a word, that creates confusion, anxiety, and self-doubt. And that's not fair to you. Silence forces you into a place where you start questioning your worth. You begin to wonder, did I do something wrong? Why am I not enough for them to reach out? But the truth is, their silence is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their choice. They are choosing not to show up. And as painful as that realization is, it's also free, because once you understand that silence is a decision, you stop waiting around for it to change. You stop hoping that one day they suddenly come back with the explanation that makes everything okay, with the explanation that makes everything okay. You start seeing things clearly. Silence is communication without words. It tells you where you stand without needing a conversation. It shows you how much effort someone is willing to give without them having to say it out loud. And the hardest part, accepting that message, because it's easier to hold on to hope than it is to accept reality. Hope says, maybe they come back. Reality says, if they wanted to, they already would have. That doesn't mean they never care. It do. Doesn't mean the connection wasn't real. It simply means that right now, they are not choosing to be present in your life. And you have to decide what you're going to do with that. You can either keep chasing someone who communicates through absence, or you can choose yourself and walk away from anything that makes you feel uncertain. Because real love doesn't hide behind silence. Real love speaks. Real love shows up. Real love makes sure you never have to question where you stand. So when someone gives you silence, don't ignore it. Don't minimize. Don't try to translate it into something softer than it is. See it for what it truly is, a decision, and then make one of your own. One of the most confusing experiences in relationships is dealing with someone who clearly has feelings for you, but still cannot show up for you in a consistent, healthy way. This is where emotional unavailability comes in. And it's something many people underestimate or misunderstand. Emotional unavailability doesn't mean a person has no feelings. In fact, they might feel deeply. They might care about you, think about you, and even miss you. But when it comes to expressing those emotions, committing to them, or building something stable, they fall short. And that's where the pain begins. Because from your perspective, it doesn't make sense. You see the connection. You feel the bond. You notice the moments when they open up, when they seem present, when everything feels right. But then suddenly they pull back. They become distant. They stop communicating the way they used to. And you're left trying to figure out what changed. The truth is, nothing suddenly changed. This is who they are. Emotionally unavailable people often struggle with consistency. They may have unresolved past experiences, fear of commitment, trust issues, or simply a lack of emotional maturity. Whatever the reason, they are not in a place where they can fully invest in a relationship. And that has nothing to do with your worth. That's an important part to understand because many people take this personally. They think if I were better, if I loved them more, if I proved myself, maybe they would show up differently. But emotional unavailability doesn't work like that. You cannot love someone into being ready. You cannot fix their internal struggles by giving more of yourself. In fact, the more you try, the more you risk losing yourself. Emotionally unavailable people often give just enough to keep you attached, but not enough to build something real. They might send mixed signals, being warm one day and distant the next. They might say things that sound meaningful, but their actions never fully align. This creates a cycle of hope and disappointment that can be emotionally exhausting. You hold on to the good moments, believing they represent the real them, and you start seeing their distance as temporary, something that will eventually pass. But the pattern keeps repeating. And at some point, you have to stop focusing on their potential and start accepting their reality. Because a person who is not emotionally available cannot give you what you truly need, no matter how strong their feelings might be. A healthy relationship requires presence. It requires communication, vulnerability, and consistency. It requires someone who is not afraid to show up fully, even when it's uncomfortable. If someone cannot do that, then no amount of love will make the relationship stable. This doesn't make them a bad person. It just means they are not ready, and timing matters. Sometimes two people can care about each other deeply, but if one of them is emotionally unavailable, the relationship will feel incomplete. It will feel one-sided. It will leave you constantly questioning where you stand. And that's not the kind of love you deserve. You deserve someone who is open, ready, and willing to meet you at the same emotional level. Someone who doesn't make you guess, chase, or overthink. Someone who gives you clarity instead of confusion. So if someone is not contacting you, not showing up, or not being consistent, if they claim to love you, it may not be about a lack of feeling. It may be about their inability to act on those feelings in a healthy way and recognizing that can save you from holding on to something that can never fully grow. Because love requires more than emotion. It requires readiness. And without that, nothing real can be built.